Why I don't always check transits as an astrologer. Well, that is based on the kind of astrologer that I am, and more particularly my philosophy of astrology. So I primarily focus on natal charts, that's birth charts, and compatibility. That's my area of focus and my approach. If someone wants natal or compatibility work done, they can come to me. If they want a more transit based approach, well, I look at transits whenever I'm doing natal chart and compatibility work, for sure, to get a general picture of where the native or natives are at in that moment. And that can indicate the best approach that I can take to that more fundamental birth chart work. Even in compatibility, I really want my clients to have a good understanding of their birth chart before I go into too much depth about the interplay and dynamics between their charts and how their charts affect each other. So I am I'm part of the philosophical school of, we could say, presuppositionalism, okay? Which is not a real philosophical school. It's a necessary prerequisite to doing anything, to understanding anything, especially understanding ourselves. If we only focus on transit work, then essentially what we're focusing on is the circumstances around us first, and ourselves and how we're affected by them second. I prefer to take the reverse approach. Self-awareness comes first because your birth chart represents that baseline set of presuppositional states that describe you despite the circumstances that come around, i.e., what transits might be affecting you at any given time, right? So you have to have knowledge of your birth chart before you can understand how the transits are affecting you. If you stick too closely to transits and you don't really know your own chart, you just rely on an astrologer or a horoscope to tell you what's going on right now, then you're not actually being present with what's going on right now, because you're not present with yourself in spite of those circumstances which are temporary and are always going to change. And that's why it's easy for an astrologer to lock you in to a subscription type service by, in a way, keeping you ignorant of your own birth chart in favor of focusing more on those external states of affairs which could be affecting you at any given time. And that will keep you in a place of not being as self-aware as you could, and therefore being at the mercy of external environmental circumstances all the time. Does that make sense? So it's a prerequisite to truly understanding transits that you need to understand your birth chart first. So that's what I focus on most deeply. It's Saturn things, it's cultivating and realizing self-authority. Where does your self-authority come from? Where is that baseline of self that is there for you to discover, that will keep you consistently in a state of self-awareness and self-authority, so that despite what circumstances, i.e. transits, are happening right now, you can remain consistent in your character expression. That's what's most important to me in astrology and as an astrologer. Transits are kind of secondary, although they give me a good context for that particular moment if I'm working with a client in a particular moment, okay? But get to know your birth chart first. It's the most important thing. And then understanding of transits will follow. And even then, it's best not to look too far ahead and try to be predictive, because that's going to influence how you manage and see yourself in the process of experiencing those circumstances. So I hope that makes sense, that the prerequisite in astrology is the birth chart, and everything else follows from that in one way or another and to some extent. So that's why I don't always marry myself to an understanding of transits. They're kind of a secondary issue for me in astrology. Cheers.